Good morning, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, Shenzhen, just south of the Tropic of Cancer. There are a gazillion hyperlinks in this podcast. Go to the chinarising.puntopress.com or the original SoundCloud and YouTube channels to the podcast, and I will have the link to the China Rising Radio Sinoland article. The title is U.S. trying to sabotage Huawei, ZTE, and Sino-5G. Too late, game over. Here we go. Westerners have long forgotten about Uncle Sam trying to destroy Shenzhen-based ZTE, one of the world's top global 5G companies. But Baba Beijing, the Chinese people, and I still remember like it was yesterday. In this referenced article, I pointed out how Baba Beijing is using the U.S.'s extortion of ZTE to motivate, inspire, and mobilize the government, business, and citizens at all levels towards the goal of no longer needing foreign microchip technology. It's not just empty talk. President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang are barnstorming the country to rally the troops. It was Premier Li who shook the Western world in announcing Made in China 2025. More on this below. Alibaba is expanding its AI semiconductor business to go mano a mano with Google and Microsoft. China opened 3 huge microchip manufacturing plants this year. They're called fabs, F-A-B-S, with plans to take on the US, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and EU across the planet. Money, local, regional, national, and international 5 and 10-year plans are creating an unstoppable, cohesive, rapid reaction, self-correcting strategy into the 20th century. I could fill this page with similar links. Right after the ZTE humiliation, Xi Jinping's following declaration echoed across China's media. He said, "In the past, we tightened our belts, gritted our teeth, and built 2 atomic and hydrogen bombs and a satellite. In the next step of tackling technology, we must cast aside illusions and rely on ourselves." End of quote from President Xi Jinping. Call it a declaration of anti-imperial tech war. After the U.S. humiliated the Chinese nation by forcing ZTE to fire its top management and board of directors to be replaced by, quote, U.S.-approved, end of quote, candidates, you could feel the indignation across the national media here. Imagine the Chinese demanding that GM or Boeing fire their top brass so that Beijing could send a list of replacements to choose from. Not only that, but ZTE had to pay a second billion-dollar, quote, fine, end of quote, read extortion, to the U.S. All this for unilateral Yankee sanctions against socialist Iran, illegal laws that no other country in the world supports except imperial colonial Israel. It's a favorite imperial pastime. Enforce accepted international laws on everybody else, ignore them back home, then pull unilateral ones out of your backside, and with the imperial toolbox, punish anybody who does not obey the latter. What is the imperial toolbox, you might ask? Inside you will find all the world's corrupting psychopathic miseries. Bribery, extortion, blackmail, assassinations, false flags, fake news, and propaganda, military aggression, sanctions, boycotts, and blockades. At the same time, Baba Beijing approved Ivanka Trump's trademark applications, causing Trump haters to go into rabid apoplexy. Hey, come on! Trump and Xi said they were best of friends. Just doing a favor, bro. Beijing has been artfully and expertly using diplomacy for 5,000 years. Imperial West and Japan were able to do ZTEs to China during its post-Opium War, drug cartel-imposed century of humiliation, 1839 to 1949. They took control of the border customs, tax bureaus, and placing traitorous compradors throughout the government administration like craven termites. Western colonialism still does this today in non-socialist communist countries. And of course, in turn, Uncle Sam keeps its jackboot on the throats of its allies in Eurangloland, Japan, Korea, and around the world. France similarly controls its supposedly, quote, free and, quote, former colonies in Africa, ditto Britain. Sad to say, but most Westerners and their governments refuse to admit that China's century of humiliation ended with communist liberation in 1949. They are incurably racist and capitalist. Which brings us back to ZTE and recently Huawei. Baba Beijing saw the clouds of tech war forming from across the Pacific when in May 2015 it launched its very successful and visionary Made in China 2025 program. It is very simple. Domestic content of key materials will reach 40% by 2020 and hit 70% by 2025, with high-tech and pharmaceuticals being at the top of the list. This especially includes 5G, microchips, and communist socialist China, both private and public, is investing hundreds of billions of equivalent dollars and euros to succeed. Two examples. One, in the last year alone, China has spent $300 billion on imported semiconductor and flat panel manufacturing equipment, increasing the pace exponentially over the previous years. And two, since 2015, China has built 350,000 5G towers to launch its seamless national network in 2019. The U.S., with the same land area, has only built 30,000 and in 2024 will still not have a national system. The global consultancy firm Deloitte, Deloitte, says the U.S. will never be able to catch up. Game over. Communist socialist China trumps, pun intended, the imperial capitalist West. And then there's a chart that shows China's importation of semiconductor, which the same thing as a microchip, and flat panel display manufacturing equipment has increased exponentially in the last year, from Brian Setzer. The U.S. can't compete against China on a level playing field, so it has to resort to its imperial toolbox. We can add another tool of intimidation, kidnapping. Uncle Sam snapped its fingers, and its maple leaf mutt to the north fetched Huawei's founder's daughter, Ms. Meng Wanzhou, who is also the company's CFO, while transiting through Canada to be extradited to the United States. Why? That old imperial chestnut, illegal, unrecognized sanction violations for doing business with socialist Iran. This is even freaking out the U.S. establishment. Wall Street now realizes that Team Trump is ostentatiously using its tried and true imperial toolbox for the whole world to gawk at, and no longer behind closed doors through the usual diplomatic and spydom channels. Team Trump clearly wants to show its citizens and the rest of the world that Uncle Sam is global cop, even if it is no longer true as it was just 20 to 30 years ago. Times have changed, amigos. For starters, say thank you to China, Russia, and Iran. The Chinese immediately started boycotting U.S. and Canadian goods and services, while Beijing arrested a couple of Canadian business people to keep things interesting. The United States is losing its cool because Huawei's, not to mention ZTE and China's entire 5G telecom backbone, is encrypted. This means that its Five Eyes, the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand global information vacuum cleaner, can't work here or in any country that uses Sino equipment. This is why Uncle Sam has gone to all of its, quote, allies, an imperial euphemism for sluts, to force them to stop using Huawei's equipment. Eurangloland actually met together to develop a propaganda campaign to kill Huawei's overseas markets, with Five Eyes promising to stop using Huawei's gear and even taking out what they already paid for. Japan and other vassal states have joined the bandwagon. So far, Germany is staying with Huawei, and you can't blame them since they know Five Eyes are listening to every phone call made by Chancellor Angela Merkel and all top government and business leaders. Countries that adopt Chinese 5G technology will not only avoid having Five Eyes giving them a 24/7 data proctology exam, but Sino gear is much cheaper and superior to anything the West has to offer. That's why all those countries bought Huawei in the first place. It won international tender after tender, leaving Eurangloland, Japan, and Korea hanging dry. Absent the imperial toolbox, cheaper, better, faster always wins the day. Now, for being U.S. whores, they get to take out billions of dollars, euros of superior, lower-cost Chinese equipment and pay more for less. So Washington and London can record their every web search, phone call, voicemail, text message, and online purchase made. The West can only slow down China, not stop it, while only increasing this nation's resolve to succeed. China was totally cut off from the Western world, its technology, trade, and finance from 1949 to 1976. During this Mao Era, Mao Zedong, the Chinese built the atomic bomb, nuclear missiles, launched a satellite, made numerous scientific discoveries and technological innovations, while transforming the country into a heavyweight industrial and agricultural force. They did very fine, thank you, without Eurangloland, and the Chinese nation is preparing to do the same for Made in China 2025. China Rising Radio Sinoland has the best English language China tech database on the web. 3 years ago, I was adding a new innovation/invention once a week. Then 2 years ago, a couple of times a week. Starting this year, China tech is swelling to tsunami proportions. I am now adding tech news almost every day and can hardly keep up. It has now become a small part-time job for me to add them. I encourage you to join tens of thousands of other CRRS fans around the world and check it out. Then give it a look-see every once in a while for all the updates. Just search any keyword that tickles your tech tummy. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out from Shenzhen. Have a wonderful day. By the way, in the article, at the very end, I say further reading about U.S. kidnapping of Meng Wanzhou from the Chinese's perspective, and I list several articles so you can see how the Chinese approach these kind of imperial aggressions. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.